So we've arrived at Caesarea Philippi, about an hour north of the Sea of Galilee.
Yes.
And walking up to it, this thing is just enormous. It's huge.
It really is a beautiful location, and there are a number of things here I want to show you.
This site has a lot of historical significance even prior to the time of Jesus.
Well, it does. It sits on an international highway between Mesopotamia and Egypt. And so there was a lot of traffic through here.
Okay.
People would come through the city, they would trade here, they would stay here, but they would also come here to worship. And what they worshiped was a grotto and temple dedicated to the god Pan, and that's where the name Paneas came from.
Okay.
Now, since then, the word has changed a little bit, and we now call it Banias.
Okay.
Changed the P to a B. And this was set up by Herod Philip II, the son of King Herod.
Okay, so this is Herod the Tetrarch.
Mm-hmm.
We read about him.
Correct.
And in this same area, we also have something that was built in dedication to one of the Caesars, Caesar Augustus. And we don't know that it was exactly right here, but it was here in Caesarea Philippi, somewhere in the area.
That's correct. King Herod built 3 temples. One was here at Caesarea Philippi, there was another one at Caesarea Maritima, and there was another one at Samaria.
And we have examples of some of that. You know, we have some of these pillars, some of these capitals, but besides that, I mean, what most people come to see is the remains of those temples and the sacrificial site to Pan.
That's correct. And those are just up the hill over there.
Okay. So below us is what?
This is the Banias Spring. It's one of the 3 rivers that lead into, they're the headwaters for the Jordan River.
Okay, so this connects with the Jordan a little ways down.
Yes.
Okay. When we first walk up, it's very peaceful. You've got one of the headwaters rolling by, but then when you turn the corner and go up the hill, it's just this stark red cliff face with temple ruins. The sun is baking you. Coming up here, we've got this cave with a big rock in it.
Right. Well, this is where the sanctuary of Pan once stood. The grottos are on up the hill here. The sanctuary used to sit right here, right in this grotto. There was water that flowed out of Mount Hermon down through here. And what they would do is they would bring a goat and try to sacrifice the goat, and they would throw the goat into the water. And if the goat sank, that was good. If it did not and it floated, that meant that Pan rejected their sacrifice. Unfortunately, at that point, the next sacrifice was a child. And so they would bring a child up here and throw the child into the water.
That's horrible.
Yes.
So at some point, this was all filled in. Water's
Yes.
not flowing out anymore.
No, it was all filled in. There was a huge building here, and the water would flow out and it'd flow down to the stream where we were below.
Okay. So this is the court of Pan, and we're walking up into this grotto area with a niche, with this shelf. What would have been put on this shelf?
They would put all kind of idols and other things dedicated to the god Pan on
Okay,
it.
now there are a lot framing this grotto on the outside as well, so those would have been filled
They would have been filled as well.
with statues and idols as
Yes.
well. So a very, very idolatrous place.
That's right.
Okay. So we've got this arch, the niche right there.
Yeah. And the temple would have come out from here and sat on this platform. Of course, a lot of it has fallen down over the years.
So this whole floor has sunken in.
Yes.
You were saying seismic activity in the area.
That's right. This is where a statue would have sat, here at the court of Nemesis. They would have had a huge temple right here for them to come up and worship.
You see niche after niche after niche where they had idol after idol after idol. You can just imagine the lighting that would have been there, the candles that would have been there, incense that would have been offered there. This was a huge deal.
Yeah, you see floors and columns and things that have, of course, fallen over over the years. That these used to be temples. These used to be sanctuaries. These are places where people would go and worship these idols. And that's what the city was known for.
So to see all of that just makes you realize how empty all of that idolatry was and how it didn't help the people who observed all of that. It didn't help the people to sacrifice the animals and their children. The niches are empty, the idols are gone, the floors are a mess, the columns are knocked over. That is not the answer. Idolatry is not the answer. And it didn't benefit those people in the least to worship those things. Normally when you come here and you're helping people understand why this is so significant, there's a specific passage that you like to read and explain.
I do. I think it's interesting that as Matthew wrote his gospel, there are some times in which he tells us exactly where things took place, and then there are other times in which he doesn't. For instance, the Transfiguration. We're not exactly sure where that took place. Or something like the Sermon on the Mount. We're not exactly sure where that took place. when he came to this story, he made the specific decision to tell us it happened at Caesarea Philippi. And I'm forced to ask the question, why? Let's read this passage here. Now, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." And he said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And I think Peter's response is so significant. If you look at Peter's answer and think about the role of the city and the nature of the city and the grottos and temples and everything that are up on the hill, what he's doing is drawing a distinction between the living God that Jesus is the Son of and the dead false idols here in Caesarea Philippi. And I think that's exactly why Matthew told us this event took place here.
So by going up there and seeing the temple to Pan, they're contrasting those dead idols with who Jesus is.
Correct.
Who he's claiming to be. Peter is saying that's who he now believes Jesus to be.
That's correct.
Being here and seeing that helps put all of that in perspective. It helps me visualize exactly what Jesus was trying to communicate, what he was trying to compare and contrast. I'm so glad that we came here to see all of that.
Absolutely.
For any Bible student, that text is probably one of the most critical or important pinnacle passages in the entire New Testament. And so to go to the place, the region where Jesus asks that question and Peter answers it is just huge. One of the things that you realize when you go to the site, this is a place where they're worshiping dead idols. This is a place where they're sacrificing animals to things that don't exist. And in some cases, they are sacrificing their children. They're sacrificing their sons to these things that don't exist. In contrast to that, the Son of the living God asking the question, do you realize who I am? I'm the Son that's going to be sacrificed. It just blows you away to realize the stark contrast. And so I think to be there, to have that explained, to be able to visualize that helps you appreciate how immense the question and how significant the answer is. This wasn't just a carpenter's son. This was the long-awaited Messiah, the anointed one. This was the promised deliverer of Israel and everyone else.
I'm Craig.
And I'm Stu, and we're the founders of Appian Media.
We really hope that you've enjoyed the content that you've just seen. This was only made available through the generous donations of so many of you.
We believe that the world should have biblically accurate, visually engaging content about the Bible, and it should be free for everyone.
We would encourage you to visit the membership page of appianmedia.org and consider becoming a reoccurring member. Everything that you donate to Appian Media is tax deductible.
However you decide to donate, we really appreciate your support.